Mzansi Storytime. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.
Vera the Ghost, the terrifying legend that haunted our childhood. The story of Vera the Ghost is a popular urban legend in South African folklore, especially known in Soweto. According to the tale, Vera was the most beautiful woman in the whole entire universe. Buckle up, get ready for an intriguing haunted tale from the heart of South Africa. Many years ago, in a forgotten village nestled among dark woods and misty hills, there lived a young girl named Vera. Vera wasn't like the other children. She was quiet, with an almost mysterious presence, always seen alone, wandering near the edge of the forest. The villagers often whispered about her, saying she was as elusive as the wind, like a shadow that drifted in and out of sight. Vera's family was well known in the village, respected yet feared. Her mother, an herbalist, had a talent for healing and crafting remedies, but she was also rumored to have powers beyond that of mere herbs and potions. It was said she could see things others could not, perhaps even spirits. Many villagers came to her for help but kept a cautious distance, afraid of what they didn't understand. And Vera grew up watching her mother's craft and absorbing the dark mysteries that surrounded their family. In the quiet village, Vera was more than just a beautiful girl. She was the kind of beauty that felt almost exotic, as though she belonged to another world. Her skin had a glow that caught the sunlight just right, and her dark, flowing hair seemed to move with a life of its own, cascading over her shoulders like the waters of a hidden spring. Her eyes, deep and intense, sparkled with a warmth and wisdom that left many breathless, capturing not only the gazes of the young men of the village but also the admiration of those much older. There was something in her smile that seemed to carry secrets, little pieces of joy and mystery that people couldn't quite grasp. Her laughter was soft, like the sound of a breeze through a field of wildflowers, and even her movements were graceful and fluid, as if she floated rather than walked. Vera's charm extended beyond her beauty. She had a spirit that radiated kindness, and her gentleness was like a balm to those around her. She was known for tending to the flowers around her small home, her delicate hands nurturing the bright blooms that seemed to reflect her own radiance. Everyone who met her felt lighter, as though she had a special gift for making the world a little softer, a little more beautiful. But there was one who captured Vera's heart fully, a young man named Stefan. Stefan was the son of a wealthy gold miner, tall, with striking features and a confident presence that matched Vera's grace. His family was well respected in the village, known for their gold and wealth, and Stefan carried himself with the quiet assurance of someone who'd never wanted for anything. But it wasn't his wealth or status that drove him to Vera. No, it was something far more profound, a kindness that mirrored her own, a gentleness that few others saw beneath his stoic exterior. The village could see that the two were inseparable, often seen walking together by the edge of the forest, their laughter mingling in the air. Stefan's devotion to Vera was clear. He would bring her fresh wildflowers he'd picked himself, leaving behind the bouquets bought from town. He adored her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she teased him, and the way she would gently brush her hair from her face as she spoke, lost in her own thoughts. It wasn't long before whispers of a future together began to circulate, and it was easy to imagine that the two of them would marry, build a family, and live happily ever after. Vera's eyes would light up whenever Stefan was near, and there was a bond between them so strong that it felt as though even time couldn't break it. The young lovers spoke of dreams and whispered promises, and as they strolled through the village, people would smile, nodding knowingly as if the love between Vera and Stefan held the promise of all the beauty and joy life had to offer. But life, as they would soon learn, is often as unpredictable as it is beautiful. One warm summer evening, Vera was seen walking to the edge of the village. Her figure, as she made her way into the twilight, was like a vision. Dressed in her favorite gown, her hair tumbling freely in the evening breeze, she looked as if she was walking into a painting, timeless and full of life. The villagers watched her pass, never realizing it would be the last time they saw her. And Stefan, who had expected her arrival at their usual meeting spot, waited in vain as the hours slipped into darkness, his heart growing heavy with worry. When dawn broke and there was still no sign of Vera, a wave of panic spread through the village. Stefan, frantic with worry, searched every place they had ever wandered together. Days turned into weeks, yet no trace of her could be found. The sorrow that swept over Stefan was palpable, like a dark cloud that hung over him. The once bright young man was now a shadow of himself, his face etched with grief and eyes haunted by the mystery of Vera's disappearance. The village, too, felt her absence keenly. Without Vera, it was as though something vital had been taken from them, something beautiful and pure that could never be replaced. The air was heavy with unspoken sadness, and people could no longer walk through the village without feeling a sense of loss, a void left by a soul that had meant so much. No one knew where she had gone or why. The townspeople searched for days, combing the woods and every dark corner, but Vera was nowhere to be found. They whispered that she had been taken by the spirits, or that perhaps she had joined them willingly. Her mother was devastated, retreating deeper into her world of herbs and rituals, but she said nothing of her daughter's fate. Then, as if carried on the wind, stories began to spread. And just when they thought their sorrow would ease, strange things began to happen. The gentle laughter, once shared by Vera and Stefan, was replaced by an eerie quiet at night, a silence that seemed to echo with something unsaid, something unfinished. One night, under a chill that sank deep into the bones, the forest held its breath, as did the villagers, who watched each other with wide, fearful eyes. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, the town resigned itself to Vera's fate. But deep down, they knew she wasn't gone. Not truly. Months after Vera's disappearance, strange occurrences began around the village. It started with small things, doors creaking open, candles blowing out without a hint of breeze, footsteps heard in the dead of night. And then, one moonlit night, a faint figure appeared near the forest. A lone hunter saw her first, a wisp of white, with eyes that burned with a cold fire. It was Vera. But her skin was pale as death, her gaze void of warmth. She had returned, but what had she become? She was there, a figure in white, drifting silently in the moonlight, her dark eyes watching, unblinking, from a distance. It was Vera, yet it wasn't. She was pale, with a ghostly glow, her once kind face now expressionless, as if she belonged to another world entirely. It began with sightings in the shadows. She was no longer a girl but a spectre, moving silently through the village at night, leaving chills in her wake. She lingered at windows, watching families sleep, her face pressed close against the glass with an expression so hollow, it froze blood in the veins. Her eyes, once dark and alive, were now endless pools of sorrow, so haunting that anyone who met her gaze would carry a heaviness in their heart for days. One night, she appeared at a young boy's bedside, staring at him with that eerie, empty gaze. The child awoke, frozen in terror as she whispered, "They took me, to the other side." And as quickly as she'd appeared, she was gone, leaving behind a lingering chill that clung to the air. So, Vera continued appearing in people's homes, standing silently at the foot of their beds, watching as they slept. She would vanish in an instant if anyone tried to speak to her or move closer, leaving only a faint chill in the air and a whispering echo. The villagers grew fearful, believing she had returned to warn them of something or perhaps, to take someone with her to the other side. One by one, the villagers tried to appease her spirit. They left small offerings outside their homes, whispered prayers, and avoided speaking ill of her. Yet, no matter what they did, Vera continued to haunt them. Her appearances grew more frequent, her figure sometimes shadowing people in the woods or standing at a distance, waiting, watching. The hauntings grew bolder. Vera became a presence that the villagers dreaded but could not escape. Some would awaken to find her shadow at the end of their bed, others would catch glimpses of her in mirrors, her face twisting in sorrow and anger. It was as if she was searching, looking for something or someone. The villagers no longer whispered her name, they feared it might summon her. Children were warned to stay indoors at night, lest Vera appear and take them away, just as she had been taken. Yet one night, a woman brave enough to speak to Vera asked, "Why are you here?" Vera's ghostly lips parted, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she answered, "They must remember, they must never forget." Every night, the town grew more anxious, unable to escape the silent, watchful eyes of Vera's ghost. The elders, those who remembered the old ways, pleaded with her spirit. They left small gifts, flowers, and even food in an attempt to appease her, but her hauntings only grew more intense. It was as though Vera had a message, something vital she wished to share, but no one could understand it. Some claimed to hear her whispering in the night, her voice carrying on the wind, "Do not forget, or it will come for you next." The villagers began to see her shadow not only in their homes but in the woods and by the river, always close, as if watching and waiting, for what, they could not say. One stormy night, lightning split the sky as the village elder, a man who claimed he could speak with spirits, found himself face to face with Vera. She beckoned him, her figure hazy and transparent, her eyes still hollow but glinting with a strange urgency. The elder, trembling yet drawn by something he could not resist, followed her deep into the woods. The air was thick with the scent of rain and fear as Vera turned to him and spoke, her voice soft but resonant. "The past must be remembered. Those who forget will fall as I have fallen." Then, in the blink of an eye, she vanished, leaving him alone under the thunderous sky. The elder returned to the village, his face ashen, his eyes hollow with the weight of Vera's words. "We have forgotten her, her pain, her sacrifice," he whispered to the gathering crowd. "We must remember. She won't let us rest until we do." To this day, Vera has not been spotted again in the village. For many years, her story was forgotten and her loved ones made peace with her disappearance. But to Stefan, she would always be the love of his life. To this day, Stefan, an old man now, has never married. Silently, he still awaits her return. But, dearest listener, do not be fooled. This was not the end of Vera. Though her memory was cherished and her story passed down, the legend had yet to fully reveal itself. Years later, Vera's presence seemed to move from the quiet village to the bustling heart of Johannesburg. Here, whispers of her ghostly appearances surfaced, telling tales of encounters so chilling, they left those who dared to speak trembling. One rainy night, a businessman on his way back from a late meeting in the city saw a beautiful woman standing alone under the flickering streetlight. She was drenched, her once flawless dress clinging to her hair framing her face like a dark veil. He couldn't ignore her pleading eyes, her silent request for help. Stopping to offer a ride, he was captivated by her beauty and mysterious charm as she climbed in, her soft voice barely audible as she gave directions. But as he glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror, a chill ran through him. Her face in the mirror was blank, hollow, with eyes dark as coal. Panicking, he turned, only to find his passenger's seat completely empty, as though she had never been there. He swerved off the road in shock, his heart pounding as he tried to comprehend the disappearance. Then there was the young man who, after a night out, spotted a striking woman walking alone on a deserted road. She looked out of place, fragile and lost, as if she had wandered from another time. He offered her a ride, and she accepted with a faint smile, her hand resting softly on his shoulder as he drove. Seduced by her closeness, he leaned in, feeling the warmth of her breath. But in an instant, she was gone, the lingering scent of jasmine the only reminder of her presence. Shaken, he recounted the incident later, his friends watching as he struggled to explain how someone so real could vanish in thin air. And perhaps the most bone-chilling was a tale shared by an old taxi driver who swore he picked up a young woman outside the city late one night. She was elegant, her clothes immaculate, her aura almost dreamlike. She spoke of love lost and longing as he drove, her words soft but piercing. As the conversation grew, he found himself drawn to her, entranced. But when he reached her supposed destination, she turned to him with a sorrowful smile and whispered, "Thank you." Before his very eyes, she faded away, leaving behind an icy chill that seeped into his bones, a chill that he claimed never fully left him. But the true terror, dear listener, lies closer than the city lights of Johannesburg. For Vera, it seems, found her way to the soul of Soweto. She arrived in Meadowlands, a place where whispers of her haunting beauty and tragic presence are still spoken of in hushed tones. When I was a little girl, my mother told me what she remembered from the first time she saw a beautiful woman on a foggy evening as she walked back from the store. A woman with striking features stood alone by the roadside, her dress almost glowing in the twilight. As my mother passed, she felt a piercing gaze and turned, only to find that the woman was no longer there. The emptiness lingered, haunting her with an unshakable feeling that someone was watching, just beyond her sight. In the dark magical nights of Meadowlands, an elderly woman in our street, Gogo, now in her 80s, told us endless tales about an unforgettable night when she saw Vera near the neighborhood's shebeen. The woman had eyes like fire and a sorrowful smile, gliding gracefully through the dim light. Gogo reached out to speak, but Vera only turned, her figure dissolving into the shadows as if she had been a mere figment of the imagination. To this day, Gogo believes Vera was there to remind them of untold stories, hidden warnings from the past. One night, a man, Baba Zulu, who frequented the shebeens saw a beautiful woman seated alone in the corner, her head tilted as she listened to the music. Intrigued, he approached, offering her a drink and trying to spark conversation. She barely spoke but held his gaze, her eyes filled with a strange sadness. As he turned away to call the bartender, he felt an icy breeze behind him, and when he turned back, she was gone, leaving his drink untouched. The entire bar went silent, the memory of her vanishing seared into his mind. And so, dear listener, the legend of Vera is far from over. Even now, on misty nights, or when the shadows fall just right, they say you can still feel her presence in meadowlands. Some say she walks the streets alone, seeking something or someone. And perhaps, should you venture out on a lonely night, you too may catch a glimpse of her, a fleeting figure in the corner of your eye, a chill down your spine, or the faint smell of jasmine in the air. So, take heed and watch your steps, for Vera may be closer than you think. If you ever see her, remember she is the ghost of stories long buried, of love unfulfilled, of warnings left unheeded. She is both a haunting and a reminder, and one you may not be able to forget.
Mzansi Storytime. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.